Over the course of your lifetime, you are likely to spend 1/3 of your life asleep. Yeah, you heard me right. 1/3. And that is possibly, 25, 26 years of your life. Yet so many of us, just like me until recently when I read about this, we don't actually understand why do we sleep? Why do we spend so much of our life, which we think we're meant to be indulging in our wakeful state? Why do we spend 1/3 of it asleep? This lack of understanding also means we probably don't value sleep enough and prioritize it enough in our lives, meaning that we often won't get the recommended 8 hours of sleep every night, leaving us sleep deprived. Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep is literally a life-changing deep dive into answering that question. Why the heck do we sleep? What does it do with us? And it sort of unpacks on how, sleep could save your life. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the most important and interesting things I learned from this book and how I'm going to let this book impact my life. Alright, first up is the circadian rhythm. This is our internal and personal 24-hour clock, and what it importantly does is it tells us when we should be asleep and when we should be awake. The circadian rhythm is found in this part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but it's here now on the screen. And although this isn't a perfect 24-hour clock, it's pretty close. But the interesting thing about this is that everyone's circadian rhythm is different and unique. None of us are like perfectly aligned, although, because there's like 7 billion people, it'd be pretty close. But it's all unique. It isn't like set in stone. And what's interesting is Walker and other sleep experts kind of split us into 3 groups. Those who he called morning larks. So your classic morning person, really gets up early, goes to bed early. You have your night owls, those who stay up naturally late into the night and want to wake up much later in the day. And then the third group of people is everyone else in between. You didn't get a special name, sorry. Now, what is super interesting about this is although we're all running on a 24-hour-ish internal clock, actually our internal time zones, or that's what I'm gonna call them, can be very different. If you're anything like me, you're a bit of a morning lark. You're much better at waking up earlier in the day and especially going to bed early. I'm renowned that I'm not a late night person. It just doesn't fit my rhythm. But the important thing is, this isn't about choice, this is about your natural rhythms. But there'll be others of you night owls, who I actually have plenty of friends like this, which is weird because it just means we don't quite match up. But they're people that love a late night, or they don't love it, it's just their natural rhythm. And so they'll be staying up late into the night, if not early into the next morning. And then their natural body clock will be wanting them to sleep way through into the day, into like around midday-ish. And then there's gonna be some of you who are like, that's not me. That's not me. And you're gonna be bang in the middle somewhere, probably a bit more average, normal, whatever you wanna call it. But I do want to emphasize, no one rhythm is correct because they're all unique. They're all based on our genetics and our chemical balances, and so there's no right or wrong here. However, what we do need to acknowledge and accept is that actually society doesn't necessarily see it that way. If you haven't noticed, the way our education systems work, the way a lot of work systems work, although this is changing slowly, is that we're expected to get up early. Whether you're a night owl or a morning lark or somewhere in between, you are expected to be at school for 8:40, to be at work by 9:30. These early mornings are forced on everyone. And what's really interesting about that is it may suit people like me who can get up early naturally and it's fine for them and they go to bed early and they get enough sleep. But for those of you who aren't like that, maybe you're more night owl-like, society's kind of screwing you over a bit because you can't actually get to sleep, even if you try, till much later into the night. But then you are forced to get up early, cutting the amount of sleep you can actually get down to amounts which just aren't fair. And what's devastating about this is the consequences. I won't be covering them in this video. That'll actually be coming in my next video, so watch out for that. When it's out, the link will be in the description below. But I can say the consequences can be devastating. But the main thing I want you to take away from this point is don't beat yourself up. If you're a morning lark, a night owl, or somewhere in between, you aren't wrong. Your circadian rhythm isn't wrong. It's just the way you were built. Also, a point I love in this book is that Walker makes it really clear that there is a point in our circadian rhythm where we are meant to crave an afternoon nap. Like, that is completely natural. Again, it's another thing which our society, for some reason, used to be very normal, but it's kind of drilled out of it. It's kind of become, seen as lazy, or you just can't. If you're working office hours 9 to 5, where are you meant to fit a nap in there? But our bodies do have a natural, like rise of melatonin in the middle of the day or early afternoon where we do crave a nap. So for anyone like me who loves a good nap, I feel much better about myself now. Now, before we jump into some of the functions of sleep, why it's good for us, what its purpose is, we need to understand that there's different types of sleep. And in fact, there's 2 different types of sleep. Every night or during the day when you take naps, we cycle through 2 different variations of sleep. The first, called NREM sleep, and then the second, called REM. Over about a 90-minute cycle, we will experience both of these types of sleep in different stages, and then at the end of that cycle, the process is repeated. But let's start off with NREM. So NREM sleep is more commonly known as that part of sleep known as deep sleep. It's that time where you are much harder to wake up, when if you wake up from it, you are going to feel way groggier than waking up from REM sleep. And it also is the time when your body slows down its functions, both physically and in the brain, a lot more so that it can truly rest. And during NREM sleep, 2 main things happen. First of all, your body is restored. So whether it's your bones, your muscles, your tissues, your whatever, this is the time where your body, your cells go to work to try and restore and look after you. The second thing it does is it transfers information and memory into different types of storage. So in the same way that on a computer you have a hard drive and then you have RAM, you have your temporary memory of the RAM while things are running, while your computer is loading stuff, and then you have the hard drive where things are permanently saved and stored. And this is exactly how our memory and how our brain works, that while we're awake, things are stored in this temporary part of our brain and our memory, and then as we sleep and go into this deep NREM sleep, it's almost like the save button is being clicked, and this information, everything we've learned that day, these memories are being stored on a permanent basis. Without NREM sleep, or if this function is damaged, it's seriously going to affect learning new things, gaining new memories, and how much we can actually grow and develop. But REM sleep is equally important, but is probably better known. And this is because this is the stage of sleep where we dream. REM sleep has a ton of functions which are all super useful, and we are going to run through them. Let's start with a quote straight from the man Walker himself. REM sleep is capable of creating abstract, overarching knowledge and superordinate concepts out of sets of information. Now, that quote may sound complicated to you, but basically what it is saying is that during REM sleep, it takes this information that in NREM sleep has been stored permanently into our memory, and it starts comparing it to our previous experiences, our previous memories, our previous knowledge, and seeing how they interact with each other. It's almost like it takes pieces of the puzzle and starts trying to fit together this puzzle of life. REM sleep and this process also is known to fuel creativity. This is the time where new ideas can come together, where you can literally take a nap and wake up and think, oh my gosh, I've worked this out. REM sleep is also the time where we have these overnight therapy sessions where it takes our memories and experiences and tries to separate a little bit of the emotion, the rawness from it, so that we can wake up feeling less anxious, less stressed out, less weighed down by the previous day's experiences. Now, obviously, it needs to be said here that when REM sleep is affected, this doesn't happen as well. And that's a whole other topic about things like PTSD and other areas of mental health. Another function of REM sleep is that it builds and retunes our ability to read and engage in an emotionally intelligent way. So this basically means that as we interact with other human beings throughout our days, we are giving off a ton of signals, whether it's through what we say to each other, whether it's through facial expressions, actions, whatever it is. And all this has to be processed by the brain, and each night it gets tired and it kind of needs to be recalibrated. And without REM sleep, we aren't going to read social cues as well. We aren't going to be able to read emotions as well in others. And the final thing that we all love about REM sleep is that it gives us crazy stories and dreams that we can share with our friends and family. And it goes without saying that those are the functions of sleep. Those are the things that happen in NREM and REM sleep. And if we're depriving ourselves of sleep, if we're not getting enough hours, if we aren't getting a good quality of sleep, those functions and those things that are meant to happen are going to suffer. And the final thing, well, at least for this video, is that the rise of technology in our modern world has attacked and is depriving us of the sleep we need. So you know the circadian rhythm, that thing we were talking about earlier. So the way that works is over the course of the 24-hour cycle, it communicates with different parts of our brain and releases different chemicals based on that. And one of the main chemicals that helps us sleep or tells us specifically when to sleep is melatonin. So the start of your day, you've just woken up, your melatonin levels are going to be low. They've kind of reset during the night, gone down, and they're going to be and over the course of the day, they're slowly going to rise, okay? They're slowly going to go up, and then they'll hit a point where maybe in the afternoon you have a little nap, and then they come down again a little bit, and then it rise and rise and rise again until you get to the evening, till they're at their peak, and that they're basically communicating to you, you need to sleep. So sunlight is one of the things that communicates to the brain how, and the circadian rhythm, how much melatonin it should be releasing and letting it build up. And so obviously during the night when it's dark, it's releasing more and more melatonin, saying this is the time to sleep. When it's dark, it's time to sleep. But during the day, the light kind of tells the brain, hey, they're meant to be awake. Let's slow down the release of melatonin. Let's lower these levels. But then, a little while ago, not in my lifetime, a long time ago, there was the invention of the light bulb, the invention of artificial light. And if we fast forward to right now, 2021, we have artificial light everywhere, whether it's from light bulbs, whether it's from our screens, devices, whatever it is, this artificial light is everywhere and it is confusing our circadian rhythm. You know, before artificial light, it was easy. When it was dark, that was when you slept. When it was light, that's when you were awake. As simple as that. The circadian rhythm couldn't get confused because that was the way the world was governed and the way it worked. Whereas now with all this artificial light, the melatonin levels aren't rising in the way they should during the day, which means especially at night, we're finding it way harder to get to sleep because the brain, the body just isn't communicating to us when it needs to go to bed. So for all its advantages, all the good things technology does for us, it's actually really negatively affecting our sleep. You may have heard of this, you know, this concept of an hour before you go to bed, try and avoid screens, try and avoid that blue light coming from the screen, whatever it is. And this is so true because we are getting sleep deprived because of the use of this artificial light. And there we go, there is just a few of the things I learned from this incredible book. I really, really rate this so highly. I recommend you go pick up a copy and read it for yourselves. But now I want to talk about how am I applying this learning to my life. Firstly, and the easy one is, I want to try, and I've tried this before and I feel inspired again, to try and minimize my usage of screens in that sort of hour slot before I go to bed. And there are some times where it's inevitable, you can't help it, you know, maybe on Friday, Saturday nights, it's the night where you sit and you watch a film with your partner, your friends, whatever, and then you go straight to bed. And so, you know, inevitably you'll have been watching a screen. But I think there's most nights where especially our phones are the culprits of what keep us awake, what distract us, what give us that gives us too much artificial light, and so I'm going to be trying to avoid that as much as possible, sort of in that hour slot before I want to go to sleep. And the second thing is, well, this was going to seem random compared to the other one, but I want to stop using an alarm. And so there is a reason for this. One of the things I didn't mention is that there's this section in this book, very brief, about how alarms are quite bad for us, how they like startle us out of sleep, and they raise our blood pressure levels, and they just aren't great, especially he was talking about when we snooze alarms. And so you get woken and started out of sleep once, and then you go back to sleep for 10 more minutes and then again, and it's just not good for us. And so luckily for me, as a morning lark, I'm not particularly worried about ever sleeping in and being late for things because I've overslept. I genuinely don't do that without an alarm. I sort of wake up between 6:30 and 7:30 anyway, and so that's not something I'm worried about. And so I want to take advantage of that and try and look after myself a little bit more and see, can I cope without an alarm? It's also important because, like we said, we have these 90-minute cycles, and I don't particularly want to wake up early from a cycle and deprive myself of enough NREM or REM sleep. Since they are so important, I want to try and wake up naturally at the end of these cycles. And so in this video, you may have noticed I hardly touched on the consequences of, or the health benefits of actually getting enough sleep or not getting enough sleep. Like I said earlier, I will be covering that in another video that when it's live, the link will be below in the description. I think it's really going to be worth a watch. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have learned something new, if you enjoyed it, please consider dropping a like, subscribing to my channel, sharing it with your friends. I've been Ash Porter, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.